He was staring to feel definitely sick now. He remembered being picked for teams during gym at his old school. He had always been last to be chosen, not because he was no good, but because no one wanted Dudley to think they liked him. Finch, Flatty, Justin, hoof, hoof, hoof. Sometimes Harry noticed the hats had sorted out the houses at once, but at others it looked a little while to decide. Finnegan Simmons, the sandy-haired boy, went to Harry next to Harry in the line, sat on the stool for almost a whole minute before the hat declared him Gryffindor. Granger Hermione. Hermione almost ran to the stool and jammed the hat eagerly on her head. Gryffindor! Shouted the hat. Ron groaned. A horrible thought struck Harry, as horrible thoughts always do when you are very nervous. What if he wasn't chosen at all? What if he just sat there with a hat over his eyes for ages, until Professor McGonagall jerked it off his head and said there had obviously been a mistake and he'd better get back on the train. When Neville Longbottom, the boy who kept losing his top, was cold, he fell over on the way to the store. The hat took a long time to decide with Neville. Finally shouted, Gryffindor! Neville ran off, still wearing it, and had to jog back amid glasses of laughter to give it to MacDonald Murrock. Malfoy swaggered forward when his name was called and got his wish at once. The hat had barely touched his head, and when it screamed, Slytherin! Malfoy went to join his friend Craven-Goyle, looking pleased with him. Moon, not Patkinson. There was a pair of twin girls, Patil and Patil. Then Percy, Shelley, Anne, and the last, Potter, Harry. As Harry stepped forward, whispers suddenly broke out with little hissing fires all over the hall. Potter, didn't she say? The Harry Potter? The last thing Harry saw before they had dropped out his eyes was the half full of people craning to get a good look at him. Next second, he was looking at the black inside of the hat. He waited. A small voice in his ear. Difficult, very difficult. Plenty of courage, I see. Not a bad-minded. That's talent. Oh, my goodness, yes. And nice thirst to prove yourself. Now that's interesting. So where shall I put you? Harry gripped the edges of the stool and thought, No Slytherin, no Slytherin, no Slytherin, no Slytherin. No Slytherin, said the small voice. Are you sure? You could be great, you know. It's all here in your head. And Slytherin will help you on the way to the greatness. And no doubt about that, no. Well, if you're sure, better be Gryffindor. Harry heard the hat shout the last word to the whole. Hole. He took off the hat and walked shakily toward the Gryffindor table. He was so relieved to have been chosen and not put in Slytherin. He hardly noticed that he was getting the loudest cheer yet. Percy was the prefect, got up and shook his head vigorously. With the Weasley twins yelled, We've got Potter! We've got Potter! Harry sat down. opposite the ghost in the roof he'd seen earlier. The ghost patted his arm, giving Harry that sudden horrible feeling. He just plunked it out a bucket of ice-cold water. He could see the high table properly now. And nearest Harry sat Hagrid, who caught his eyes and gave him the thumbs up. Harry grinned back, and there, in the center of high table, in a large gold chair sat Albus Dumbledore. Harry recognized him at once from the card he'd gotten on this chocolate frog on the train. Dumbledore's silver hair was the only thing in the whole hall that shone as brightly as the ghost. Harry spotted Professor Quirrell too, the nervous young man from the leaky cauldron. He was looking very peculiar in a large purple turban, and now there were only 4 people left to be sorted. Thomas Dean, a black boy even taller than Ron, joined Harry at the Gryffindor table. Turpin Lisa became a Ravenclaw, and then it was Ron's turn. He was pale green by now. Harry crossed his finger under the table, and a second later the hats had shouted, "Gryffindor!" Harry clapped loudly with the rest as Ron collapsed into the chair next to him. "Well done, Ron. Excellent," said Percy Weasley pompously around Harry as Jabini Blaze was made a Slytherin. Professor McGonagall rolled off her scroll and took the sorting hat away. Harry looked down at his empty gold plate. He had only just realized how hungry he was. The pumpkin pasty seems ages up. Albus Dumbledore had gotten to his feet. He was beaming at the students, his arms open wide, as if nothing could have pleased him more than to see them all there. "Welcome," he said. "Welcome to a new year at Hogwarts. Before we begin our bucking, I would like to say a few words. And there they are. Newt, Blubber, Oddman, Twig. Thank you." He sat back down. Everybody clapped and cheered. Harry didn't know whether to laugh or not. "Is he a bit mad?" he asked Percy uncertainly. "Mad?" said Percy airily. "He's a genius, best wizard in the world. But he's a little bit mad. Potatoes, Harry?" Harry's mouth fell off. The dishes in front of him were now piled with food. He had never seen so many things he liked to eat on one table. Roast beef, roast chicken, pork chops, and lamb chops, sausage, bacon, steak, boiled potatoes, roast potatoes, fries, Yorkshire pudding, peas, carrots, gravy, ketchup, and for some strange reason, peppermint hamburgers. The Dursleys had never exactly served Harry, but he'd never been allowed to eat as much as he liked. Dudley had always taken anything that Harry really wanted, even if it made him sick. Harry piled his plate with a bit of everything except the peppermints and began to eat. It was all delicious. "That does look good," said the ghost in the roof sadly, watching Harry cut up his steaks. "Can't you?" "I haven't eaten for nearly 500 years, said the ghost. "I don't need to, of course, but one does miss it. I don't think I've introduced myself. Sir Nicola de Mimsy, Pumpkin at the Service, resident ghost of Gryffindor Tower." I know who you are, said Ron suddenly. My brother told me about you. You're nearly headless Nick. I would prefer you call me Nicholas de Mimsy. The girls began stiffly, but Sandy Harris Demus Finnegan interrupted. Nearly headless? How can you be nearly headless? Sir Nicholas looked sternly me as if their little chat wasn't going as all the way he wanted. Like this, he said irritably. He seized his left ear and pulled. His whole head swung off his neck and fell onto his shoulder as it was on a hinge. Someone had obviously tried to behead him, but not done it properly. Looking pleased at the stunned looks on their faces, nearly headless Nick peeped his head back onto his neck, coughed and said, So, new Gryffindors, I hope you're gone to help us win the house championship this year. Gryffindor have never gone so long without winning. Slytherin had got the cup 6 years in a row. The bloody burden became almost unbearable. He's the Slytherin ghost. Harry looked over at the Slytherin table and saw a horrible ghost sitting there with blank staring eyes, a gaunt face, and robes stained while shiver blood. He was right next to Malfoy, who Harry was pleased to see didn't look so pleased with his sitting endurance. How did he get covered in blood? Asked Seamus with great interest. I've never asked, said nearly headless Nick delicately. When everyone had eaten as much as they could, the remains of the food faded from the plates, leaving them sparkling clean as before. A moment later, the dessert appeared. Blocks of ice cream in every flavor you could think of. Apple pies, treacle tarts, chocolate ochles, and jam donuts. Trifles, strawberries, gel or rice pudding. As Harry helped himself to a tray, the talk turned to their families. I'm half an elf, said Seamus. My dad is Muggle. Mom didn't tell him she was a witch till after they were married. Bit of a nasty shock of him. The other laughed. What are you, Neville? Said Ron. Well, my gran brought me up, and she's a witch, said Neville. But my family thought I'm all Muggle for ages. My great-uncle Algie kept trying to catch me off my guard and force some magic out of me. He pushed me off at the end of Blackpool Piers once. I nearly drowned, but nothing happened until I was 8. Great-uncle Algie came for dinner, and he was hanging me out of the upstairs window by ankles when Great-auntie Enid offered him a meringue, and he accidentally let go. But I bounced all the way down to the garden and in the road. They were all very pleased. Gran was crying. She was so happy. When they were there, you must have seen him. So Great-uncle Algie was so pleased he bought me my toad.